Back in 2017, a uniquely different puzzle platform horror game was released to the world. A game with stunning visuals and an amazingly terrifying atmosphere. This is McKiLL TV, and today we look back at Little Nightmares. Little Nightmares is a puzzle platform horror adventure game developed by Tarshare Studios and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment for PC, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Stadia. Set in a mysterious world, Little Nightmares follows the journey of Six, a hungry little girl who must escape the McKiLL, which is an iron vessel inhabited by monstrous, twisted beings. Little Nightmares is somewhat of a 2D side-scroller, but it feels and performs like a 3D world. The player traverses the world through various platformer elements, occasionally being blocked by puzzles that must be solved in order to proceed. The player is generally rendered helpless in their environment due to lack of any combat abilities, and therefore must rely on stealth and the surrounding environment to hide from various enemies. On a few occasions, the player is given the tools that even the odds slightly, and allow them to fight back in certain scenarios. The game's protagonist goes by the name of Six. She is a 9-year-old girl in a yellow raincoat that awakens from a dream of a woman wearing a kimono and a Noah mask. Armed with only a ladder, she sneaks through the bows of the McKiLL, a massive, underwater iron vessel. Throughout the McKiLL, she encounters small, skittish creatures that either flee from her or passively observe her efforts. Six has the option to hug the gnomes, should she get close to one. In the prison where captured children are held, Six evades the deadly leeches that infest the depths and an artificial eye that will turn her into stone if she is caught in its light. Six also regularly experiences debilitating bouts of hunger. Whenever she eats, a shadowy, flickering version of herself appears. After eating some bread offered from an imprisoned child, Six is captured by the blind, long-armed janitor, who supervises the captured children. Six escapes but makes no effort to help the other children. She falls into a room filled with piles of shoes and evades the unseen monster brewing underneath. The janitor eventually corners Six, but she severs his arm with a collapsing door. Caught by another bout of hunger, Six is forced to eat a live rat. She travels to the kitchen where children, wrapped up in the butcher's paper, are being sent. Here, the grotesque twin chefs are preparing a feast and pursue Six whenever they spot her. Later on, Six makes her way outside the hull of the McKiLL, above the ocean waves, scaling the hull. The procession of obese, suited guests marching into the McKiLL from their vessel. They lumber into a Japanese-style guest area where they gorge themselves on food. This feast is overseen by a mysterious lady from Six's dream, the masked woman of the McKiLL. Several guests scramble after Six, but she outruns them. When she has another hunger attack, the gnome offers her a sausage. However, Six just eats the gnome instead. And later on in the game, Six follows the lady up into her quarters, which are strewn with broken mirrors. Pursued by the lady, Six finds an unbroken mirror, which she uses to repel her. The sight of her own reflection causes the lady pain and eventually subdues her. As the lady lies defenseless and weakened, Six experiences a final hunger attack. She bites the lady's neck, killing her and absorbing her magical powers. Six walks back through the guest area, surrounded by dark aura. Some of the guests try to eat her, but their lives are instantly drained and their necks snapped by her new powers. She passes through a door, proceeds up a staircase, and out into the sunlight, while all the gnomes she has hugged gather at the open doorway. This is the game's main story summary, and the game's story itself is told through the gameplay alone, with little to no dialogue throughout the duration of the game. Visually, the game is stunning, with all the monstrous beings having remarkable design and character models. But most of all, this game's mysterious atmosphere sets it apart from me and makes it such a memorable experience. With its clever level and puzzle designs to its fantastically eerie soundtrack, this game manages to set a great stage in order to visually tell its haunting story. With this game, the team wanted to explore wild extremes of childhood. The game's setting, the McKiLL, was created as a piece of concept art, where all the worst things in the world could be left to rot. In keeping with the theme of childhood, the team opted against creating a powerful protagonist. While the gameplay has been described as stealth-based, the team prefers to describe it as hide-and-seek, feeling that even the term stealth gives the impression of empowerment to the character. Little Nightmares was originally announced by Tarsier Studios in May of 2014 under the title of Hunger, with no known publisher for release on the PlayStation 4. After a teaser trailer in February of 2015, nothing was heard of the project until August of 2016, when Bandai Namco Entertainment announced that they had entered into a worldwide publishing agreement with Tarsier for the project, which was now retitled Little Nightmares. Little Nightmares debuted at number 4 on UK's all-format sales chart within its first week. Later on, the complete edition would sell almost 13,000 copies within its first week in Japan, placing it in the top 15 of all-format sales charts. Later, in August of 2018, the game would finally sell over 1 million copies across all platforms. And in May 2020, Bandai Namco announced that more than 2 million units have been sold. This spawning the creation of a sequel, as Little Nightmares 2 would come out soon after. Little Nightmares received mostly positive reviews. It currently holds an 80% on the Metacritic, receiving generally favorable reviews from all critics. Upon its release, many critics praised its atmosphere, graphics, and sound, while also criticizing its checkpoint system and short length. Later on, Little Nightmares would receive a trio of DLC levels. The Depths, a boy called the Runaway Kid wakes up from a nightmare involving him swimming in darkness just before being dragged underwater. After leaving the nursery, he follows a girl who's also found, but later she disappears. She leaves behind a flashlight. The Runaway Kid falls into the depths of the McKiLL, which are heavily flooded. He avoids leeches and makes his way across by hopping on floating platforms. The depths are home to the granny, who swims underwater and attempts to grab the Runaway Kid, either by bumping and destroying the floating platforms he stands on, or by snatching him if he's in the water for too long. The Runaway pushes a TV that's plugged in into the water to electrocute the granny. The Runaway leaves the depths but is then captured by the janitor. The final scene shows the Runaway Kid in a cage next to other trapped children. The janitor pulls the Runaway Kid's cage away. The Hideaway is another DLC level. Wrapped up in butcher paper and ascending on a hook towards the kitchen, the Runaway Kid breaks free and falls into a new level of the McKiLL, finding an engine room where gnomes throw coal into a furnace. After evading the janitor, the kid uses the gnomes to power up the furnace. The bucket elevator in the engine room becomes fully functional and lifts the Runaway Kid up to the furnace, where more gnomes are gathered. Their shadows cast by the furnace light, resembling children. After leaving, the Runaway Kid finds himself on top of a rising elevator occupied by the lady. And in the final DLC level, The Residence, the Runaway Kid enters the lady's residence after solving a series of puzzles to find the missing statues while fighting off the shadow children. He finds the lady looking at herself in a mirror, her unmasked face in the reflection revealed to be gruesome and deformed. The lady is alerted to the Runaway Kid's presence and transforms him into a gnome. He then finds his way into the guest area, in the room with the sausage in Six's story. The chapter ends with the Runaway Kid standing by the sausage, indicating that he is indeed the gnome who Six eats in the main story. Overall, the DLC gives further insight into the world in which the game takes place in. Gives a grim look into this dark world where children are locked away, mistreated, and even eaten by the monstrous beings seen throughout. Overall, Little Nightmares is an intriguing game, one that I would insist anyone play and give it a chance if you haven't thus far. Little Nightmares may not be an overall super scary game when compared to more intense horror titles out there, but it manages to put in place a dark world that keeps you hooked as the player and leaves you wanting answers to what exactly is taking place in this world. All in all, I really wanted to look back at this game again, as I hold it in high regards. Everything this game tries to do, it excels at, and even though I don't really have any real critiques of this game, I would say it's a little short, as the game's runtime is about 6 hours or less. But with the DLC and the complete edition, it runs closer to 11 hours. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed looking back at Little Nightmares, and if you did, please be kind enough to hit that like button down below. And if you're interested in more games similar to this, be sure to come subscribe to McKiLL TV, as I cover more games just like this. But until next time, this has been McKiLL TV's Little Nightmares Retrospective.